Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us at the Microsoft Power BI UK user group. I'm your host Leon Gordon, and after we've had a little bit of a short break recently, we're actually back with another fantastic session to come together as a community to learn more about Power BI. Now, as always, please do let us know where you're joining us from in the chat today. Are you here in the UK where it is absolutely frighteningly cold? We are definitely in December, or whereabouts in the world are you joining us from? So whilst this is the Power BI UK user group, we are very aware that we have a worldwide audience here. So unfortunately, my regular co-host Pragati Jain can't be with us today. She's been caught up with a client issue, so it lies with myself to make sure that we hit the ground running with today's last webinar before the Christmas break. Okay, so if you do want to let us know what your Christmas plans are as well, then please do feel free to let us know in the chat. So with that being said, as always, we want this to be a fantastically interactive session. So please do feel free to ask questions throughout. Today's session is going to be on what I would describe as a pretty fantastic tool, an external tool within Power BI. I won't steal Gregor's thunder, but what I will do is just give him a very brief introduction. So in today's session, we're going to be looking at Measure Killer for Power BI with Gregor Brunner. Okay, now Gregor is 34 years old and he has a background in economics, but moved into business intelligence in 2016. Originally from Austria, he moved to Switzerland in 2020 and started Brunner BI, a boutique IT company that specializes in Microsoft Power BI development. So Gregor, I'll just bring you onto screen.
Hi, thanks
How
for
are you
having
doing
me.
today? No
I'm
problem
great,
at all.
thank you.
Excellent. And where are you joining us from today, Gregor? Is it Switzerland?
It's Switzerland, yeah, Bern, Switzerland.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. If you wouldn't mind sharing your screen for us, I can hand over to you and bring you straight in for your session.
Great. All right.
Perfect. Enjoy.
Yeah, so I want to show you all this tool that we've been working on for the last half year, I would say. Measure Killer is basically a new external tool that helps you with a couple of things. The latest feature that we just added is we're trying to build it more into a tool also to clean up your Power BI tenant. But the things that it's doing really well and is already working almost perfectly, I would say, is to delete unused measures columns and also giving you a nice analysis of your reports. Like I said, we started developing this a couple of months ago. It was a client that actually made us start this because we had a problem during a project and there was a lot of measures in one data set, and we tried to use some tools that had been out there at the time, but it didn't really work as we expected. And then basically in my team, we started looking into it, and within a couple, I think 1 or 2 months, we had a working prototype, and it was actually already pretty good. And now we built it out into a really cool external tool of Power BI. And I just want to show you the basic features today. And we have even some different models now. We also have some licensing. Most of the features are free to use, but if you want to have dedicated support, or you want to use one of the features to analyze your dataset using XML, the XML endpoint, that's the option where you don't have to download the Power BI dataset onto your computer, but you can analyze it basically while it stays in the Power BI service. There, of course, you have to have Power BI Premium for XML, but you also need to purchase a license from us. But everything else is free to use, like adding, like analyzing a single report or dataset, and also something that we have just released this week, analyzing a shared data set, meaning one data set that is connected to multiple reports. Like we can see here, for example, I have one central data set and it's connected to 3 reports. It can be as many as you want. That also is possible now. And that was really one big thing for us that we wanted to achieve. By the way, if you have any questions, also Leon, if I don't see the questions, but since I'm sharing my screen, please just feel free to throw them at me.
No problem at all. I will do.
And but I just want to show the basic stuff. Maybe we can start with analyzing a single report or data set first. So that's the main mode for Measure Killer. Once you select this, the main window will open. And what you need to do is you need to select the port in the drop-down menu. There's only a port available if you have Power BI running, if you have a report open on your machine. So I have this sales report here. It's just some sample report from us. And this is the one I want to analyze. So it's a single report and data set, no thin files or anything. And then I just select this port here. So it gets this automatically, but I still need to select it myself because it could be that I have multiple files open, and then I would really have to look at which port is the right one. If I don't want to go through this, I also have the option to start Measure Killer through external tools, the ribbon we have. Then that's basically I would say the safest way. Maybe it will start by itself, and it will pre-select. As you can see, it will pre-select the port here. I cannot change it anymore. And maybe that's the preferred way to analyze a single report or data set. So I'm interested in all my artifacts, my measures, my tables, my columns, whatever, what I'm using in my report and what not. Because a lot of times we know that we load stuff into our reports and then we end up building it, and then we don't remember anymore which artifacts we actually need and which we don't need. And there are tools out there, but we try to make a tool that is very user-friendly and also that has almost no limitations. We have a couple of limitations, and I can show them to you right now. We can see here basically, what Measure Killer looks at. It looks at any kind of visual, also filters applied on those visual, filters applied on pages, on the whole report, any kind of measure, any kind of relationship, also indirect relationships, inactive relationships. It looks at columns that are used in the report, of course, but also columns that are only used in joins in Power Query. It looks at calculated columns, calculated tables. It looks at conditional formatting, also custom visuals. And here are a few things that do not work. Like, for example, you cannot delete calculated columns. That's just for architectural reasons. It's not possible, as far as I know, at least. Then we have one real limitation, I would say. If you have a column that has a title in its name, it will appear as used, which we call false positive. So we built Measure Killer to be 99.9% sure we don't have any false negatives, meaning we'll tell you that it is not used, and then you delete it, but it actually was used. That's something we really try to avoid. And the trade-off is that we might have some false positive, meaning we will say it's used in very, very rare cases, even though it might not be used. But that's still safer than the other way around, right? So yeah, if you have a column named title, that will create some problems. It will basically say that any other columns in the table will also be used, even though it might not be used. That's one of the limitations we found in the last week or so with this new version. And the other limitations, I would say, are kind of negligible. like we have local date tables, we decided basically to, if you have local date tables in your model, of course, which, yeah, we should avoid, of course, but it still might happen. We will tag them as used automatically. So we don't want to get into deleting anything there. And also, we have generally this problem of second class measures, meaning measures that are referenced in other measures. For those, we need to run measure killer several times. So first time we'll delete the measures that are used in the visuals, and then the second time we would delete, for example, in those second class measures, and it can go, of course, depending on how you build your report. It might need several runs, yeah. And then also there's one problem with McAfee antivirus, but we have a workaround for that. So those are the limitations, and I think it's okay from a user point of view. So now let's go back to my report. Like I said, I have it open. You saw this, and now I'm just gonna go to execute. So I want to start and let Measure Killer do its magic. One more thing I need to do is I need to select the path where my report is saved. So we always need to do two things. Well, not always, but in most cases of Measure Killer, we need to select the port and the path where the report is saved, because we're analyzing two things. We're analyzing the model itself, and we are analyzing the report layout. And for those things, we need to basically get the report path and also the port. And unfortunately, that's just how it works, because at least I don't know if there's any other way, and I have not seen this anywhere. So yeah, and then you click on run. It's just double checking if you have selected the correct report, but in this list that you saw, it always suggests the last report open. And now you can see Measure Killer is running. It's going through all the artifacts that I have, and then it's done. I can close this window. And now I have this main table here where I can see all artifacts that I have in my report, in my data set. I can see if it's a measure or a column. I can see where it's coming from, which table or which page it's used on. And I can see also the size. So I can, for example, sort, and I can say here, oh, order number is a column. It comes from fact sales main, and it has in bytes, so it has 1.1 megabytes, and it's not used. So that would be, for example, something I can quickly remove that. I have different ways I can remove measures here, columns here. There's a lot of functionality built into here, but this table is just giving me a first overview of what's going on in my report. And like, yeah, as you can see, the red things are basically the unused things. The other stuff is used. We can also see, let me see if I have the calendar. No. I think there is. Yeah. We also have the measures table, of course. You can see that here. Some of the measures are used, some are not. I can also just click on unused, and then I can see all my unused artifacts. And now, if I want to go ahead and kill or remove my unused measures, I have this little option here to either kill all of them. I can select the ones I want to get rid of. For example, we can do, I don't know, revenue and profit. Just want to delete those two. I might need costs later today. And I can go to kill selected, and then Measure Killer basically will remove them by itself. Can double check, click on OK, and now we can see that basically it's rerunning Measure Killer now. So, and then updating my table, and now we can see that only this year-to-date costs is left. I can also double check here. I can see the other year-to-date measures are gone and only costs is left. There's also a way to generate a C# script if you prefer to to delete those measures in tabular editor. We're generating the script, and then you can just copy this here, put it into your notepad, for example, or copy it into tabular editor directly, and then you get this code for the advanced editor in tabular editor. Yeah. For the advanced scripting, I think it's called. Do we have any questions at this point, Leon? Anybody?
We do indeed, mainly from myself, which is always a good thing. So the question I've got, so we've executed here, and obviously, as you've shown in the last demos, we've removed some of the measures, the selected measures. Now, is this automatically written to the model or the
Yes.
report, depending? Okay. So is there a method to undo as such?
Yeah, the only method, and we also write this in the documentation, is to save your report first and then do it, and then think about. I mean, you can of course double check now, right? If something broke down now, I would see it, and then I would basically close it and then reopen the old file, because it's not automatically saved, but it's automatically applied, because it's like executing the script in tabular editor, you know.
That it makes total sense.
Yeah.
And then just another one for me, and I will ask the audience at the moment. We can always come back as well if there are any questions as we move through this. Now, one use case that I can see is obviously model documentation. Now, I know you have the document results function there, which maybe covers that, but that would be my question from that perspective: is could this be used for documenting the model?
Yeah, I mean, we can document. I mean, this is basically the most important things in our mind. So if I open, you can see I have those little plus things, right? And there I can see all the places where this artifact, in this case, it's a measure, everywhere this measure is used. I can see on which page. I can see on the page customer, it's used in a custom column chart, donut chart. I can see it gives me a good direction where those things are used. I can see which page, things like this. But if I want to go into the details, I can do document results, and I can here generate an Excel file now. And we have two different types of reports. The row by row is really the most detailed one, I would say. In the end, they have the same amount of columns, but the clustered one basically gives you one row for every artifact, and then it says it's used here within one column. So it might be a little messy, but the row by row one is basically the one where you get. Let's take a look at it. It's better to
Perfect.
See. Measure killer output. So this is in my view, the best one, the row by row export. And here, if I just turn on those filters, maybe we can take a look at which one should we take a look at. Maybe this customer, or not customer dates. What else do we have? Maybe let's look at this cost. It is a big one, right? So I can now here search for the artifact, look for costs. And now I have one row for every use, basically. So every row represents something that Measure Killer found. You can see that, first of all, this is a measure, right? And then we can see, for example, if it's used in other measures, and you can see the DAX expression. You can see if it's used in a visual or not. You can see what type of visual it's used in. We also get this visual ID. We actually just discussed this today, that we get the visual ID because we need to count, or we wanted to build something that tells you, okay, how often you use an artifact. And for that, we thought, okay, we can count basically those visual IDs. But in the end, it's not really, I don't really know what you can do with the visual ID, if you can really identify a visual like that. I don't, maybe you know, but yeah, we have it, it's documented, but we just don't really know yet what to do with it. But generally, you can see on which pages basically the artifacts are used. You can also see things like if it's used in, if it's like referenced somewhere in another report. That of course only makes sense if we have a shared data set.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it sounds like there's a fantastic amount of information available here, so it could be used for that purpose, which is great. We do have a question coming in as well. This one comes in from Pedro. Now, I know you touched on this earlier on in the session, but he said he's had some trouble with installing based on his antivirus. Is there currently a workaround available?
Which antivirus are you using? That's because we have just released a new version today, because we saw also that there were some problems with that. That's also why I put this workaround for McAfee on the website. Maybe I can show this again.
Perfect.
So we tested it with a couple of antiviruses like Kaspersky, and I think either it was Avira or AVG, I'm not sure. And there we didn't have any problems. McAfee actually flagged it, and then there's a way to basically whitelist it, and then you can run it. But if Pedro can tell us which one he had problems with, maybe we can also take a look at that. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'll await Pedro's response. So he's actually come back to us very quickly, and he's mentioned that it's Avast Pro.
Okay, I will take a look at this. Yeah, because so we're also doing some calls to the Power BI service, right? Because I will show them we're doing some XMLA. We connect to the XMLA endpoint, and we're suspecting that this might be a reason why some of the antiviruses might flag it. What we did is we put a full code signing on. Basically, we had a certificate, code signing certificate on Measure Killer, on the installer, on everything, to make it as reputable as possible. But still, maybe there are some processes that some antiviruses might flag. Yeah, that's something we still have to take. We couldn't test it with all of them, unfortunately, but we did with a couple.
Of course. And as you mentioned as well, there's a new version available literally today.
Yes.
So I have put the link to download that directly in the chat. So maybe try with the latest version as well.
Yeah, exactly. So we did release 0.9 on Tuesday, and that's where we really put out those shared data sets. And that's also where the first time we had this XMLA endpoint. So that was the new feature that might trigger some response by antivirus. And then we fixed some bugs here. We updated the installer. We just did this today. Actually, this should be today. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, and it's still a work in progress, because we need to get more feedback from the community. We have collected feedback over the last couple of months, but there's always something that you missed. Even when we prepared for today's meeting, we found out one more little thing that we need to fix. I guess in software development, it's just how it is. And yeah, but hey, at least it gets better and better every time.
Of course, and this is very much like you mentioned, an iterative approach. We've had some feedback coming in from Power BI Querios, and they've said they've installed it just now, absolutely no issues. This tool is amazing, and thank you so much. So with it being, like you mentioned, something that's an iterative process being developed by the community, it's also very good to hear the community loving the tool, and as you said, feeding back in.
Right. Yeah, and the more feedback we get, the better we can make it. And really encourage everybody to try it out. Try to solve some of your problems with it. I think it's very powerful in terms of what it can do. As you can see, it can clean up your report. It can also document stuff. And what most tools cannot do is also you can get rid of your unused columns. And this is something I think that is very powerful, especially in larger environments, in when you have big data sets and you're scared what to delete, even if you have one report. Yeah, I mean, you can use some tools to analyze it, but then do you really want to try it out and risk it? And the way we remove unused columns is, first of all, maybe I can wind back a little bit. Here we can see all the unused columns we have right now. I also have measures here, but mainly it's columns. I can also sort by the size, right? That's also something we wanted to build in, because just having the name is like, okay, but which ones actually make the difference, right? And here I can see this order number is not used at all and has over 1 megabyte, which is not much. It's not much in the end, right? 1 megabyte, but still in your data sets, this is just a sample. In your data sets, it might be 100 megabytes, who knows, right? And the way you can delete those columns is through this button here. Measure Killer will now suggest all the tables that you have where it found unused columns. And it's basically sorting it by the total sum, by the sum of the storage space that you can save if you delete all the unused columns. So you can start with the top table, and you can see here it's basically removing order number and order line item, and I can just copy this, and it's a manual thing, but you just have to do it once per table. And actually, one second, this was F sales main. Oh, I have to re-authenticate here because I was logged in with a different user here. 1 second. So yeah, here we have this table, and Measure Killer suggests to delete 2 columns, and I can just basically copy what I got here. I just go copy text, copy it here into Advanced Editor. You can see it's adding 1 step at the end. So we're basically copying the whole code, adding our step depending on which columns are not used. And then you can see it's creating this new step here, columns removed by Measure Killer. And you can see order number and order line item were taken out. And the good thing about this is you can always go back. There's no harm done. And I can just apply this now. It will run through, and we can check if anything happened. If not, we can leave it like this in case something broke down. I can always remove that step later and basically go back to my original version.
And Gregor, I do have a question at this point. So will this functionality work for any data source?
You mean what kind of data source are you talking about?
So let's talk about import mode as opposed to direct query.
Yeah.
But in terms of data sources, so obviously this is used in a data flow at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any data sources that this approach wouldn't work with?
Yeah, I mean, so we're only looking at import mode. You're right. We're not, direct query is not possible right now. For import mode, we haven't had anything that created problems, because in the end, it's just identifying the columns and adding this step in Power Query, right? So whatever happens before, I guess, is not really that relevant. But yeah, I would say it's good for now. But of course, there's always something that could go wrong. But like I said, there's no risk for you. So I would just go ahead and try it. And it will add the step here. And if that is not a problem with your data source, which it shouldn't be in import mode, I guess, should be fine. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
But yeah, you mentioned direct query. I mean, there's a lot of ways to run Power BI, right? There's analysis services, we have direct query, we have all these things, and we're still getting started, I would say. We're looking at direct query, we're looking at import mode now, and the other things we'll take a look at later. Actually, let me show the main feature that I think is maybe the most powerful one for Measure Killer. Let me just open. So, like I said at the beginning, we also have this option to analyze shared data sets. And I just want to go back here and, if you have something in the service and people build reports based on data sets, then it really gets almost impossible to figure out what is used and what not. Of course, you could copy paste all pages into the data set, but once you have, I don't know, 100 pages, it just gets impossible. Or even with 50 pages, it's already a pain in the butt, right? So the coolest feature of Measure Killer, and that's what we're kind of proud of, is that you can analyze the data set through the XMLA endpoint, basically while the data set stays in service. And this is also one of the features where you have to buy a license. You also have to have Power BI Premium, of course, but this is like the most convenient way to analyze a data set. So the only thing I need to do is I need to put in the workspace name. And if I put it in wrong, like, I don't know, I put a space first or something, then it will try to connect. Now I have to log into my Power BI account, but it will say, hey, I couldn't find, please just check all those things. You also need a library for this, for the XMLA connection. This library is automatically installed if you have SQL Server Management Studio, for example. So most people should have it. But if I remove this space, or even if I make a space after it, it will be able to connect. And then I get all the data sets in my workspace. And now I can go to next because I want to analyze this weather data set. And what I need to do now is I need to add those thin reports. I need to download them. That's one of the things that are maybe not perfect yet, but actually we're working on this. So you can either add those thin reports manually. You can see here I have those four. Maybe also let's take a look at what we're even dealing with here. So here we have a data set that has kind of weather data, and those reports are actually kind of cool because we have a huge map. One second, why is there no overlay? There was an overlay on the temperature. Oh, yeah, here we have an overlay that's working. Oh yeah, here we go. And by the way, as you can see, we're using your friend, colleague, whatever, James Dales' beautiful icon map for this, which is a fantastic map visual. And we built this temperature report based on this weather data. And yeah, it looks kind of cool. And here we're just using stuff like temperature from this data set, it's calling in weather API, like a free API. And then we have other reports. We have a rain report where we can just see the precipitation based on, worldwide, basically. We can take a look at everywhere. And then when you hover over one of the cities that we have data for, you can also see some forecast. So we have rain, we have temperature, degrees Celsius, and then we also have wind speed, wind directions, for example, here in Europe. And those purple things are the clouds. So with those three things, we're pulling some data from this weather data set, right? And now we want to analyze which stuff we actually need from the dataset and which artifacts we might be able to delete. And like I said, I connected, or like you saw, I connected to the workspace, I selected the dataset, and now I can either pull in those thin reports one by one, or I can select a whole folder, which might be more useful. Now I double selected it. I can basically delete one of them. So we gave here some possibility to play around with this in case something went wrong. I click on submit, and now the main window will open. We can just get this confirmation here, which thin reports, which live reports were selected, and I can go ahead and run Measure Killer on this. You can see it's going through those reports, analyzing all those artifacts, and it's giving me this. It's giving me table like before, but in this case now you can see that some artifacts don't belong to the dataset. They belong to those thin reports. Like for example, this rain probability tooltip measure, it only exists in rain. So I even find that out, right? But the main thing, maybe what you want to use it for, is you want to go to the unused stuff. You want to see which parts of the data set are not used anywhere in those thin reports. And that's what you can do here. And then again, you have those options for killing the measures. You can see it's grayed out. We cannot do it directly through XMLA yet. We're also working on this. Currently, basically, we give you this option to generate the C# script, and then you have basically you can run it manually on the data set. But we're expecting to be able to do this at some point directly from Measure Killer, basically putting this command into the service and modifying the data set there, which also maybe some people don't want to do, because right now we only need XMLA read. So we're not writing anything to the data sets, we're only reading. And for this, of course, we need write permissions, which might be more complicated to get in your organization. And then also we have the unused columns. Just like before, you get the M code, and then you can copy this into the data set. So cleaning it, you still need to do manually as of now, but at least you will see what you can get rid of. And that's really for me, the very powerful thing, because with this, if you have a large tenant, you have a lot of data sets refreshing all the time, and you don't even know what is used. If you clean up your tenant with this, you clean up all your data sets, especially the big ones that you have, you can really save some processing power on your maybe premium subscription, on your premium capacity, or you can just make sure that you're only using or you only have the data in your data sets that you're actually using. Yeah, and then that's clean it up, like lower the refresh times, and make everything a little more efficient.
I think that's an absolutely fantastic feature, to be quite honest with you. The question I will have is, and there is a question I'll go to from Pedro at the moment, which is on slightly a different topic. Mm-hmm. So the question I have from this perspective is, I know you mentioned in the future we'll be able to run it directly against live data sets. So the C# element, the tabular editor element there, comes into play in enterprise. In enterprise projects, I would say, because we might be using tabular editor within, I don't know, a DevOps pipeline for CI/CD. Do you feel that Measure Killer will go down a similar route in the future? Maybe have a command line executable that can be called from a pipeline? Because the reason I ask this is that this could potentially wreak havoc if in the wrong hands against a live data set. But using that, being able to call that in a pipeline, for example, would be a fantastic win.
It's a great idea. Actually, I never thought about it, but since you mentioned it now, we'll think about it.
I'm going to patent that idea now, Gregor.
Yeah, no, I mean, those, that's why also we want to go out there, show it to people, we want to make it better. I mean, the Power BI community is so powerful because people are working together. They're sharing ideas. They're making things available to each other and building great solutions in the process, right?
No, agreed. Like I say, absolutely fantastic functionality. We do have a question coming in from Pedro. I have asked him to elaborate slightly, so I might give you the spin that I think this is going for. So, when you discuss the licensing type and the use of the XMLA endpoint, Pedro's asked, is it not enough to have Power BI Pro? As he thought that he's heard that it's only for Power BI premium licenses.
So as far as I know, you need to have a premium workspace to have XMLA enabled, and it doesn't work on Pro. No. So you have to either premium per user or premium capacity, as far as I know.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's been any changes to that I'm aware of. The next question comes in from Power BI or PBI Querios, and they ask, are they correct in thinking that accessing the XMLA endpoint is only available to premium workspaces, which we just covered. So the answer is yes, premium or premium per user.
Exactly, and also you need to have some things turned on in your tenant. I'll just show you my tenant because it's not that sensitive at all. It's I think somewhere here you have XMLA. I think you have to have this on, and then there's one other setting where you have to have where you can select which, if you have read or read and write. And a lot of tools need read and write, but we only need XMLA read. So that's also something where we said, okay, maybe more organizations will be able to use it because this is really risky, right? I mean, you have this tool, it's new, you're writing stuff to your data set that is maybe even in production. I mean, you can destroy everything with this. And we understand that this is a concern, and that's why this version is like a good compromise, I would say, between automated capabilities and user friendliness. So it's like you get the information automatically, but still you need to actively destroy stuff on your own in those cases.
Excellent. And we do have some feedback coming in from Mojo Jojo, excellent username. And they say, really cool work. Kudos to Gregor and the team.
Yeah, thank you so much. Maybe also we can have Klaus join us now. Klaus was the main developer of this, actually. He did a fantastic job. He wrote it in Python. And maybe we can also give you guys a sneak peek into what we're planning on doing next. And maybe Klaus can share some information on that, or we can, the three of us, discuss it. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Yes,
yeah,
of
no
course.
problem at all.
Basically, we are trying to have the XMLA option more automated, so we can basically generate all the lineage. So once you select a workspace and then you select a data set, then Measure Killer will generate all the reports that are connected to that data set in a kind of tree view maybe, or just a simple table. And then we can get the layouts using REST APIs from Power BI. Of course, there is some testing to do still. There is some permission issues we may find in the future, but that is the plan. So basically, the last option, that's XMLA option, will be fully automatic, or the most automatic.
Exactly. And as you saw, I still have to have those thin files on my computer as of now, right? And that's something we think maybe we can automate. And we already did some tests and it worked so far. But yeah, connecting to the REST API is another thing, and then it might create other problems. But hey, I mean, so far we've been able to solve those. And basically, what we try to achieve with this new way that we think it's going is some kind of administrator mode, because I think a lot of admins have no way of really controlling their tenant perfectly. And there are tools for that, and there are good tools. But I think if we had those capabilities that an admin can just sign in, can see all the workspaces, can see all the data sets, and can then run Measure Killer on those data sets, telling him which artifacts are not used within those data sets, and then maybe forwarding this information to the data owner, to the team that is responsible to clean up their data set. It can really reduce the refresh times. It can lower the, I mean, you know the stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah, agreed. And I can add a bit of context to this. So I've worked with enterprise clients. We're talking hundreds of millions, billions of rows, generally in import mode. And this is when these elements become absolutely key. If you're working with tens to hundreds of rows, maybe even thousands, you can get away with it, right? But in terms of refresh times, like you say, optimizations in terms of model bloat, even down to querying against fact and dimension tables. This type of tool all those months ago would have been a godsend, right? Because we just had to do everything manually. I believe IMCA has a very similar functionality as well within her tool. But this, not to compare the two at all, because I think it sounds like both are absolutely fantastic. But in terms of the automated flow of Measure Killer and the possibilities with it, it seems to be very robust, especially if you can have that live connection and through lineage. As I mentioned to you earlier, the only thing that would complement that for me would be the CI/CD element. And again, not everybody does this in Power BI, right? So it's very much a niche here, and potentially have the opportunity to roll back as well. Right. Those two elements of functionality would be amazing. But I know that you mentioned you might have a sneak preview. So I'm obviously going to ask you guys.
We can only show some code. I think actually, maybe there's not much to show. We just want to build this lineage now, and I guess it's not that sophisticated yet. But once we have this ready, I think we'll show it to people. But that's basically just what we're working on now, and I just wanted to share this, that at least in my mind, the next big feature should be this admin mode, where you can just select all the workspaces, you get all the data sets, you see how many live reports are connected, or thin reports are connected to it also. And that already helps, because I have to say this lineage view in Power BI is quite, I feel like it's not accurate sometimes. Have you also experienced this?
I can't say I have. I'm not very hands-on anymore, so that's probably the reason why. Yeah. But yeah, I can't say that I have experienced that aspect of it yet. Maybe some of our participants have. What tends to be the way with the cloud-based version of Power BI is that the updates are rolled out a lot more frequently. Even than the monthly cadence of Power BI desktop. So what might be experiencing is little bugs there potentially. Again, I don't know this, but it might be something from that perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
We have the offline option for the datasets too. I think we forgot to show.
Yes, I didn't show that because I actually thought maybe we might run out of time, but now we have some time left. If we don't have any questions, I can still show that.
Yeah, please do. I mean, at the moment, what we're getting is feedback. So, for example, and Anthony Brazil saying, "Great tool, can use it absolutely immediately." And just on the point that we were discussing, PBI Querios can confirm that the lineage view can be inaccurate. He thinks it only shows the initial connection lineage. If you change data sets, it sometimes doesn't show. So, fantastic feedback there as well. So it's not just yourselves that are experiencing that by the sounds of it.
I think that makes a lot of sense, actually, because I've experienced it too. If you have like 10, 20 sources basically in your lineage, and then you start changing it doesn't update. I think that's exactly true. And it's so annoying, because what's it for if it doesn't work properly? And there are tools that do this better. For example, Power BI Sentinel is a very cool tool, I would say. And I think the lineage there is accurate compared to Microsoft. And for us, we want to also build some lineage to give people a better overview of what's going on in the tenant in terms of how you can optimize it. And in my dreams, I would like to see people being able to downgrade their premium capacity from maybe, I don't know, P3 to P2 or P2 to P1 because of all the things they can save. I don't know if that's realistic, but it's a dream.
Oh, definitely. It sounds like it, and I think it's amazing to see these type of tools being built as well. So my mind was just traveling slightly as you were speaking there. So, for example, a tool called Power BI tools, and this is the again the what's the best way to call it? It's basically source control for the report files as well is the element that I've used. And I'm just thinking a superset of both of these tools together could be quite powerful, especially alongside a tabular editor and a DAX Studio. It seems like it could become the complete kit. So yeah, kudos.
Yeah.
With that being said, I'll hand back to you to go into the demo.
So just share my screen. Yeah, so what we skipped now was actually so let me also explain the licensing that we really invested a lot of resources over the last few months into building this. That's why we also thought, okay, at least the big companies, if they want to use it and they will use the XMLA endpoints and those features, we need to find a way of maintaining the development costs and also support. So we're charging for that. But the free version has almost everything. The only thing you cannot do is this XMLA connection, which I showed at the end. But now I want to show you what you can do with the free version, which is analyzing a shared data set in the offline way, like Klaus said. So I have the data set here, open here, and then basically I can do shared data set on local machine. And here I just select my data set, which I have open in Power BI, go to next. Now in this way, in this case, I need to select the data set itself again. We also have this here, just to make sure, please always read the instructions to avoid any problems. So I need to select the data set first. Also here it will say data set, right? So just to double check to make sure we're doing everything correctly. You select the data set first, and then you select either individual live reports or all of them together. And now I have it all, like as you can see, I have it all on my computer. I click on submit. It's again double checking, is this your data set? Yes. And now it will analyze it exactly the same way as we saw before with the XMLA endpoint, but doing it locally. And I can execute it here. It's going through it. The speed of Measure Killer depends on the number of visuals you have, the number of artifacts you have. That's basically what it's analyzing. And as you can see here, now I can also kill the measures directly because this is the local mode, right? I have it open, means there's a local instance of analysis services running in the background. So I'm able to run our tabular killer. That's the process that does this. And I can just say kill them all. And it will delete all the unused measures directly in the data set, for example. And then it will run it again, and it will update this table, will refresh it to see. And we can also double check here. You can see all the measures it killed. And this is part of the free version because we don't want to take anything from the community. So if you're able to download your data sets, you can use this without any issues. It's free to use. We also have some buttons here, like no idea what to do. It will take you to our YouTube channel. Let me just pull up YouTube here. So we have a couple of videos there. It's also embedded into the website, how to find and remove unused columns and measures, for example. For every version, also we release a new video. We're still to release a video for this 0.91. There's also a blog post that will explain everything. So on our blog, we're also collecting the feedback. That's one more button in the UI, this feedback button here. Now it's opening this one. I didn't want that. But yeah, it goes through the main browser, and in my case, I'm in incognito mode. But the feedback, we're collecting this on our blog here, Measure Killer Feedback. You can also see that we already have 26 comments. People are engaged here. It really helps us to build out this, and that's where we basically expect you to provide feedback, because then also other people will be able to see what you wrote, see our answers, and it will help everyone in the process.
Definitely. So everybody that actually wrote feedback today, as part of today's webinar, go and leave it directly on the website. The link is in the chat on both YouTube and LinkedIn, and support the community effort. That being said, guys, if you ever do need any testers, then just let me know.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, I'll be happy. If somebody like you also tested with a lot of experience, it helps us even more. And this thing with the antivirus, if anybody has this problem, please reach out to us. Please put it in the blog post. This is very important. We'll also try to get in touch with those people to see why it's doing that. It's not completely clear to us, because some antiviruses don't flag it, some do. It's kind of strange. But yeah, it will help us to make it, at least the version 1.0 then will not flagged by any of them anymore, hopefully.
Fantastic. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any more questions coming in at the moment, but I will make a note to say that we do always ask our audience for feedback, not just on today's session, but on all of the sessions that we put on here at the Power BI UK user group, and also future sessions that you want to see from us as well. So if you have a specific topic that you would like to see covered, then please just do let us know by using that feedback form that's now in the chat. Okay. Gregor, Klaus, is there anything else that you wanted to cover off in today's session?
I think I talked enough. Maybe Klaus has something to add, but
No, I don't think so. I think you covered everything.
Excellent. Teamwork makes the dream work. No, guys, absolutely fantastic session. Like I say, the mind just turns over with the amount of ideas that I can see coming from this tool. And I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye to see what's coming next. And also I'll send some feedback myself as well once I get a chance to use it in anger, so to speak. And if we can have you guys back with us in the future as well, we'd love to. Like you say, version 1.0, 2.0 and 3.0 in the future as well. We'd love to see the development.
Amazing.
Excellent.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you both for your time. And I'd also like to go ahead and thank everybody for joining us today at the Microsoft Power BI UK user group. Like I mentioned, unfortunately, our co-host Pragati Jain wasn't with us today, but I'm sure she'll be back with us in the next session. And as always, today's webinar was brought to you in association with our sponsors, Pomerol Partners. Pomerol Partners is a tool-agnostic data analytics consultancy that specializes in helping your business grow by using data. So please do reach out to us on pomerolpartners.com, where we'd be happy to help you with all of your BI, data analytics, and machine learning and data science needs. Okay. So with that being said, you could have been anywhere in the world, but you've been here with us at the Microsoft Power BI UK user group. I'm your host, Leon Gordon, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Stay safe.